This is Movies, a podcast about the act of cinema, and I'm your host, LowRes. With me tonight is Hans, and we are going to be talking about a landmark year for film. We're going to be listing off the 10 best films of 2020. Now, Hans does not have a 10 best films of 2020. It was that pathetic of a year. How many films do you have on your list, Hans?
I have four best, and I what if I just complimented with six of the worst that I saw?
I think that's
I can have 10.
We got 10 and 10. Yes, all right. That works, I think. Yeah. Okay. It is a very unimpressive year for movies. I can't think of anything specifically that shouted out to me as an excellent film I'll revisit time and time again that was released this year. I think there were some interesting movies made, and almost none of them were scripted. They were all documentaries. It was a great year for documentaries. A lot of documentaries this year. You know why? Because you don't really need the theatrical experience for a documentary. And you got all these companies that are hung up on the idea of big box office returns or manageable box office returns for their projects that they probably won't be getting ever.
What percentage of your list are documentaries?
Probably half. It's very close to half, I would say. I said it before on one of the earlier shows, but I watched, 49 films this year, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of those movies are documentaries. So maybe not half, but a significant number compared to usual. It eats up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about adding documentaries to my list. So maybe your list would look like mine if you didn't.
You don't count documentaries as films?
I just don't think of them as like, I don't know why, because I do watch a lot of them, especially like killer stuff. I'm a big fan of that, but for whatever reason, I didn't think to add them on the list. I guess it's mostly because the ones I watch, I never think they're coming out in the same year. A lot of the documentaries I watch are just old things that I'm just kind of catching up with. So it's not that I don't consider them documentaries, it's just that I didn't really think of them when I was thinking of this list. But if I could, I guess I would add that Belushi one that came out this year, right? That one was really good. Yeah, not part of my list, but that documentary is really good.
Are you sure you don't want to amend your list on the spot to add it?
No, that's fine.
All right.
Well, actually, yeah, let's take out Devil All the Time, which was on my list just because I added it on my other one.
But is that hold on. Devil All the Time was number 3 for films watched in 2020 on your list the last episode. Does that mean it's number 1?
No, because I wasn't thinking of order. That's okay. The thing. I wasn't thinking of them in order from best to. But actually, from the ones I have, that's really sad to say if that's my number 1, because I did like it, but it's not.
It's not. Yeah. Here's the precursor to the list that will be given tonight. I just said this to Hans right before the show, but in any other year, I can say probably none of these movies would be in the top 10. They would be B tier at best. Okay, now there might be an exception for 1 or 2, like the top 2 placing, top 3 placing maybe. But even those, I'm like, no, I don't think those would be. I don't think they would be in the top 10 any other year. 2019 was an especially good year for big corporate movies, for major distributors. And to come off of that, it really feels like that might have been the last hurrah of this particular medium, for now, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so should I start with my worst 5 then?
I would love to hear the worst 5 films of the year, yes. I'll tell you what, I'll give you my worst 5 as well.
Okay.
I got nothing. I'll keep it brief though. Do you want
to give me your 5? You give me your 5 just quick because you have other 10.
Yes, I have 20 more movies to rattle off. All right, so the 5th least worst movie, right? So not the worst, but the 5th fifth to the bottom, is actually Batman Death in the Family, but this is not the real fifth because I watched it wrong. Apparently, this movie only works on Blu-ray because then it's like a Bandersnatch style movie. I downloaded the torrent of this animated feature, and it's literally just like a 20-minute recap of a movie that came out 8-9 years ago. So let's take that off. Hubie Halloween. There you go. That's the other one. Next is a movie.
You finished that.
I finished it. I finished it. Yes, you could not. You could not palate it.
Nope.
For me,
you're a better man than me.
I like to give a movie a shot all the way through, which is why I watched Porno to the very end credits. Porno was a movie that was acquired by Fangoria, who was owned by Cinestate at the time, and I stayed to the very last card where they said a thoughtful horror film LLC. And that is really what dropped Porno even further on my list, because that was a terrible movie. Next up was Blood Machines, the Shudder film released in 3 chapters, which I thought was a pointless waste of time. A lot of people prided the visuals. I said, don't care. You disagree with that?
Blood Machines, never heard of it.
No? Okay, you didn't hear of it. I thought you were about to say, no, that wasn't that bad. Next up, Guns Akimbo.
You know what? Before you, okay. Well,
no, go ahead.
That's on my list.
That's on your list?
No, I'm kidding. That's. Oh yeah, that was this year. That's weird. No, the one before. What was the movie before that you just mentioned?
Porno.
Porno. Going back to my thought. Fuck, I lost my train of thought. Never mind. It wasn't about porno. It's about something that you're mentioning of that movie ruined it. God damn it. Anyway,
it's all right. It's Castle Freak.
I'll try to remember.
No? Okay. How about Guns Akimbo, the Daniel Radcliffe starring comedy sci-fi film from some Australian director? Really unfunny, really painfully bad, cheesy, bad jokes, not worth your time. The worst movie... No, that was the second worst. The worst movie is The Tax Collector. The Tax Collector is an impressively awful film from David Ayer, starring Shia LaBeouf and a guy who definitely could not pass as a gangster whatsoever. Very soft, very theater kid, very like, well, I best not say, but he's not a good actor even. His delivery is off. There's no energy in it. There's nothing believable about it. And the movie is like it doesn't have a clear linear path. It does fucking loops with the story and makes no sense at all. The characters' decisions are so questionable that it removes you from the film maybe 30 minutes in. You start to understand this isn't just a bad movie. This movie has zero logic to it. So that's my worst film of the year.
My thought throughout that movie, I think within that half an hour that you just said that before, it completely falls apart, was from then on was, oh fuck, Shia LaBeouf got a real tattoo for this.
Yeah.
Like that was the thought in my head because of how terrible this movie is, how incompetently made it is, which again, I don't know what the fuck Hollywood did to David Ayer because he was a good up and coming director. Who had interesting things to say and the way he would show them were interesting at the beginning of his career. And then Suicide Squad came and it seems like it just sucked everything out of whatever he had going. And now we get The Tax Collector, which is horrendous. Yeah,
horrendous.
It's not even enjoyable like that.
No.
It's not even that you can laugh at it. You're just kind of like baffled as to why are you doing this? You used to be talented, and you have a couple of good actors in it too. Where it's just like you should be getting more from them, but yeah, it doesn't work in any way.
The Shia LaBeouf thing regarding the tattoos, I feel like he took this movie just to get the tattoos, so he would have an excuse for it. It kind of, you know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you still like Tim Dillon. I listen to Tim Dillon. I think Tim Dillon's a funny guy. I mean, as far as like the field, comedy is very 2020, in terms of quality. So Tim Dillon is really one of the best out there as far as that goes. But what I've noticed lately on his Instagram and on his show is he loves wearing this very explosive hoodie. Have you noticed this? He loves to wear this hoodie.
Bathing Ape, I think it is.
Now,
right?
now he's doing this, he says, for a joke. But what I
Do you
think
hear
is,
why? Do you hear why he said? Because apparently a black guy said that he looked fly in it. So he was like, the first time a black guy has ever complimented me, so I feel good.
right.
Which
So
sounds very gay, and he's gay, so it makes sense.
here's what I
It makes
really
sense that
think.
somewhere, somewhere that was going to creep into his personality.
So
Yeah.
here's what I actually think. He's doing it for a bit, so he can become that. So he's getting comfortable with it as part of the show, so he can eventually adopt that as part of his personality. I think that's what Shia LaBeouf was going to do with the tax collector, which is like, I'll get the tattoos for the role, but I really want to be this guy. And so you're kind of like warming up for that. I think that is exactly what Tim Dillon's doing. That's what Shia LaBeouf did. I think a lot of actors do that. They start to
Hype
take
beast.
yes,
Hype beast Tim Dillon.
yes. You laugh now. Who's he hanging out with? He's hanging out with all the YouTube people. It's for a joke. It's for a show. No, it ain't. Who are you fooling? You live in L.A. You've been doing this forever now. Come on, you know what you're doing. He's gonna watch in 10 years. He's gonna get skinny like Jonah Hill, and he's gonna be dressing like that when he's 40 and gay.
Oh, that's gonna be weird. That's gonna be weird because he's so big,
Yeah.
like so round. I don't know. I think it might just be another one of those 5-year stages that Shia LaBeouf has in his career, where every like 5 years he kind of maybe not even 5, 3 years, he reinvents himself as whatever the new character he's playing
Yeah,
is.
he's only like
and now
32.
that's his whole personality now, like whatever character he's playing at the time. I remember when Fury came out, he was like a soldier boy,
He was that
right?
guy. Yeah, he was wearing the
When
boots.
That time, yeah. And then when Nymphomania came out, he was like this sexy guy, right? He's like his image is it seems to be molded around whatever role he has going at the time. But I never thought he would go as hard as to getting a gigantic tattoo on his chest for this role, which is a new level of method acting, I guess. But at least do it. Like it happened the same thing with Jared Leto when he did that movie where he gained a bunch of weight. And it's just a piece of shit movie, or the 50 Cent movie where he lost a shitload of weight, and he's just a who cares
the AIDS movie. Yeah, and then no one watched it. No one saw it.
Exactly. It's just like, thanks a lot for doing that. No one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And for this one, especially after watching the movie, I guess you could defend it a little bit if it ended up being fucking Goodfellas 2, but Mexican.
Yeah.
But
that's not what
it
happened.
wasn't at all.
Not at all.
In any way, at any point, nothing. It's just. Yeah, it has no redeeming qualities at all. It's really it's kind of impressive how bad it is. How with all the resources that you have, being a director that had a name. I don't know if his name's still there after this and Suicide Squad, but he had a name, and you have. I mean, letting his craziness to the side. Shia LaBeouf is a very talented actor. Like he's very good whenever he's trying. So you do have the tools, and then you watch this and you're just like, I'm just confused as to how do you even make something as bad as this? But
clearly,
anyway.
he did that as a favor. Do you think it was him acting as
He
his?
wrote it too, right? Didn't Ayer write it too?
I think so. Yeah,
it.
this was a passion project for Ayer.
Oh,
I was going to say, do you think Shia LaBeouf playing his abusive father was him adopting those personality traits? Why he took it out on FKA Twigs?
Maybe. You like that movie, right?
I thought that movie was great. Yeah, he's excellent in it. And the child actor, I don't know the kid's name, but he's very good too. It's a very good movie, Honey Boy. The director has disavowed Shia LaBeouf since then, so I don't know about whatever they're going to do next. What a worm!
Well,
what a worm that woman is. She was just.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have a recollection of her.
Notaro?
She did the Tig Notaro thing.
Tig Notaro.
After you granted her a career, she turns on you. She was priding the North Korean dictator, his sister, when his sister was supposed to be taken, because he died like 4 times.
Oh yeah,
in the press.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. He must be dead.
She was
this
gonna
girl
take over
boss.
because...
Yeah, she was priding that woman, and then she has the nerve to turn against Shia LaBeouf, who made her. I really can't stand that kind of. Regardless, Shia LaBeouf could have murdered an old woman in the most violent fashion possible with his fist. Really turned it into like the inside of a watermelon you just smashed. It doesn't matter. You shouldn't turn on somebody that you have a good working relationship with, just based on morality, in my opinion.
But what did he do? What crazy thing he did now that's just not typical of every actor? Because I feel like he's obviously very talented. He's been doing this for a long time, and he's played. I would say comparable to someone like Johnny Depp, that's played so many different types of character, right?
Yeah.
Where you're gonna get Shia LaBeouf, you know he's gonna be good, and he's gonna be playing someone interesting. Even if he gets a couple of lines, even if it's just a couple of things, you know that he's going to fucking get into that character, and he's gonna be that guy for how many lines you get. But yeah, that's some snake shit, and he's just not the typical actor, and I think that he tried to do that with "He Will Not Divide Us" thing, and like trying to be a little bit more vocal on those things because of the whole environment that he's in. But I don't know if that's who he really is. For that same reason, also, like he just
here's what I
remember
think.
Remember when he was an artist?
Yes.
And he was just
He did his movie
sitting
theater
with
bit.
a paperback on his head.
Yeah, the Nymphomaniac premiere. He said, "I am not famous anymore." The same year that Lars von Trier wore his persona non grata T-shirt after getting kicked out for making a very failed, inappropriate joke during the Melancholia press conference. So,
Right, but he seems to be someone interesting, someone that's kind of an artist, maybe. Like, I hate saying this, but someone that has a little bit of personality. That's not the mold that every character or every actor is supposed to be successful in Hollywood, which is why I think he gets so much shit thrown at him. Not because he's untalented, but just because of his outside life.
Because he's an actual person, and that has made him being an actual person and living in that kind of environment where you have to be performative in order to get roles, right? And I'm not saying that this isn't performative. Obviously, doing these events and whatnot is super performative. But there's a difference between that and the artifice in day-to-day interaction with people, in order to try and bolster yourself. I think you take that kind of person, you put it in that environment, and somebody like that, who is not the easiest person to get along with, regardless, they're going to implode. They're going to become unstable, especially if they're raised in that environment.
Yeah.
So you get to factor that in as well, which is not to excuse anything that he did or did not do. I'm not even well versed on what the allegations are. It seemed pretty bad. It seemed unrealistic at some points, in my opinion. Like you couldn't imagine a human being that's relatively stable and not a sociopath, creepy rapist, murderer type person doing. And then some of it sounded extremely Shia LaBeouf, like slamming his foot on the gas pedal and refusing to slow down unless she said "I love you," which sounds like a scene out of American Honey or something, So yeah, I can picture him doing that. But
it's an Even Stevens
yes. Look, which again isn't like the validity of the claims is irrelevant. I don't care either way.
Right.
I like Shia LaBeouf as an actor.
Well,
Tax Collector's bad.
I think we go back to the thing that you made a video about, the whole Vincent Gallo thing, where it's like, if you want to have actors that actually have a personality outside of what they're reading, you're going to get a bunch of weirdos, quote unquote weirdos, that are just not what you're expecting, or not the behavior that you expect from them, which makes them boring, which makes them very good at reading something that someone else wrote for them. But if you interview them or you talk to them, they're a zero.
There's no perspective. That's the thing. There's no personality developed that they can bring. So maybe they can inhabit a role, but what will be left is a very sterilized, good performance that doesn't have any sort of energy beyond that, no life beyond that, which I think we have a lot of actors that are trying to be Daniel Day-Lewis, that method style of acting,
like that's going to make them good,
right? But if everybody's doing a lesser variation of that, then you don't have what worth are you? You're all the same. You're all the same cardboard cutout. We need more people
you have to be better than him if you're going to do that.
Yes,
you have to be that crazy person that. What was it in Gangs of New York that he thought he
Bill the
was
Butcher.
the butcher? So
Yes.
so if you were talking to him, like he's the character, and you're not gonna get him out of that. Like you have to go overboard, otherwise, then why even try? You
But
know?
even with him, that was his personality. That was his person, and because it's been blanketed to every young actor, it loses its novelty. It's the Tarantino thing. When Tarantino came out, all of his films were a mashup of other earlier films, obscure films. When everybody else is trying to do that and ape that style, then I mean, eventually that'll wear off, and you'll be able to recognize the artist who brought that forward, as the visionary or whatever. But for the time being, where it's just like a spread out field, it's boring. It doesn't offer anything new. So I don't know. From that, we should
So
probably
we're Team Shia, I guess.
we're definitely Team Shia LaBeouf. He's welcome on the show anytime.
Yep. Welcome to be in anything that we do. This
Yes.
is great.
Mass State Lottery.
He actually would be someone that I think, like, I'm not a good interviewer, as anyone's seen whenever we have a guest, but someone that would be interesting to talk to just because of how out there he is and how much he's played a different role, not just as an actor, but as in his life or whatever it is that he does. Not that I know what his personal life is like, but like I said, he tends to like transfer himself into whatever role he's doing for a while. So he's someone that I think will be interesting to just talk to, just to see what's going on in his head. And then, again, one of those artists that it'll be worth to have a conversation with instead of just a regular bland actor.
Yeah, I just remembered somebody who has been on this show before had a very volatile interaction with Shia LaBeouf at one point in Los Angeles. It probably wouldn't be a good story for the podcast. Probably be better to let them talk about it. Actually, I think Jake Hanrahan had a weird interaction with Shia LaBeouf too, but not in person, just through the internet.
Was it Nick Oldershaw that was just homeless with him for a couple of days or something? I did poppers with Shia LaBeouf and slept in my car.
Yeah, no, it was not Nick Oldershaw. Although that would not surprise me in the slightest. Based on, I mean, did you listen to his podcast on Shane Gillis and Matt and Shane?
Yes.
Oh God, what a life!
I didn't know any of this shit about this nice boy.
This very nice, well-adjusted looking.
Yeah. It's just like, I'm fucking doing acid and some homeless whatever the fuck. It was just like, Jesus, dude, you jerk off with cars coming at you. What the fuck? Yeah. But anyway,
doing medical tests for money. Spinal fluid mishap. Spinal fluid just trickling out of. I was on the train. I was like, I started shriveling up listening to that. Everybody, go listen to the Nick Oldershaw episode of Matt and Shane's Secret Stash. I'm new to like Shane Gillis stuff, so I don't. Is that the name?
It's great. I'm a big fan of the show. It's called Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast. And Nick Oldershaw is in his last week's episode. I think the episodes come out on Tuesday. I think so. He's in the last one, and it's really, really interesting, really funny.
Yeah, Shane Gillis's podcast is very good. That's what I've kind of reached my limit where I'm kind of getting sick of the people that I like in terms of listening to people, and I need new stuff. So I started listening to them, and I've been really enjoying that. And also Ari Schaefer's podcast. Ari Schaefer's somebody I had a distaste for previously. Ari Schaefer. What's it? Yeah. Paul Schaefer, David Letterman's band leader. Yes.
Schaefer, the guy from
Listen,
on Down.
I said Joe Spinello earlier in the night. I don't know anybody's names, okay? I'm old now, Hans. I'm like you. You got to correct me. All right?
That's right. I'm the young sprite one.
Yes. Shane, and his sketch comedy that he did on YouTube, that bit was very funny as well. So Shane Gillis, check him out.
The thing that I like about that show is that it's just two shitheads. They have no pretenses of talking about, even when they talk about like war and shit like that, they're just two retards that at any point would be like, yeah, that war was gay. And that's it, and move on. Mm-hmm. So it's just, it's really easy to listen to. But go listen to that show. That's much bigger than this one.
Yeah.
Go, like you need us to fucking send people that way. Anyway, let me get to my list, because if not, we're not going to finish this ever.
You didn't even get to your worst movies. Yeah, hurry, come on, let's get to it. Yeah. This is supposed to be a shorter show. We're already 24 minutes in.
So my top bad one is Jacob's Ladder. That was 2020, and completely forgot that was 2020.
Was it?
The beginning of year. Yeah, it was
Whoa.
before we shot the movie and everything. It was one of the first episodes of the year, I think. And that movie is just has no reason to exist. It's as simple as that. It doesn't do anything well. It doesn't improve anything from the original.
Mm.
It's just what is it? A race swap movie, and that's it. With removing everything that made the original interesting.
Yeah, it's
Not
nothing
just
like the
right,
original.
also visually and just the performances and everything is just it kind of felt like just we need to do something with this franchise because we're going to lose the rights to it, so just do whatever. And
Right.
that's what this movie is. It's just whatever. It just has its name, but it's garbage. Uh, the next one is I don't know if you've seen it. It's a Netflix Spanish movie called The Platform. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I haven't heard of it.
When it came out, it had a little bit of hype because visually it's very interesting. It all happens in these jail cells that are designed in a way where so it's just like a tall tower, right? And the way that they feed people is that a platform goes down every day with full of food, but it's going floor by floor, and in each floor people eat. So by the time they get to floor 20 or whatever, there's barely anything left or scraps or whatever. And it's kind of like social commentary as to what society
Ah, the haves
capitalism,
and have-nots.
poor people gets shit on and whatnot. But this suffers from the thing that I Saw the Devil doesn't suffer from, which is this movie believes that it's really smart, but it's really fucking dumb. Like midway throughout the movie, things just stop making sense. You're just like, hold on, like the rules that you've set up are just this way so that they can continue with the story. It's shitty, and uh, it's one of those open endings of like we don't figure it out yourself.
Big waste of
So
time then.
to me, yeah. So to me, it was a huge waste of time, especially because of all the hype that it had. At least in Spanish-speaking countries, I guess you guys never heard of it, but in our Netflix was huge, and that piece of shit. Next one, quickly, Invisible Man. Hated that piece of shit.
Ooh.
Did we do an episode on this?
I don't think so.
I don't remember.
We might have talked
Okay,
about it in
so
passing.
Invisible Man, ugly wife, who is kind of crazy. Story that doesn't make any sense. Technology that doesn't make any sense. It was well shot at points, but it was very boring. And whenever shit hits the fan, it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Again, with the rules that they set
Disappointing.
up.
Disappointing is the word that comes to mind for Lee Winnell, because
Mhm.
everything else he's done has been like a pretty well done, smart, and stylistic piece of work. Like
Yeah.
Upgrade was great. The original Saw movie is pretty good for a written piece too. Is successful.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one just yeah, no, that would be three. I don't even want to get into it that much just because it's not even worth it. Another one that I don't this is my Doctor Sleep for this year,
Oh god.
where I don't understand the praise, where I just don't understand what other people are seeing in it, because I'm pretty sure he got mostly positive reviews, but I just couldn't get into the story, and I couldn't find anything other than visually interesting at times that would make me want to either recommend or watch it again. Uh, the next one is The Five Bloods. Oh, Spike.
Ooh.
Spike.
Oh.
What happened? I know.
We might have.
But-
I don't know. That was almost in my top 10. I took it out of my top 10. I had it
Okay.
in my top 10. That's how bad the year is. That would have been interesting if you had a worst and I had the same movie as one of my best. Damn, could have been good.
That
Good
wasn't
for
your
publicity.
best?
Yes, for one of my best. For one of my it came in at what was it? Number 11, 12, 13, something like that. Yeah. I have a higher tolerance for Spike Lee. The Five Bloods is number 13.
Okay. Well, no, didn't do anything for me.
I
at
know.
all,
I could tell
at
in the
all,
episode we did.
At fucking all. We did an episode. Well, that's the thing.
we
We did.
did.
I did too. So I did an episode with you, and I did one in
no.
my Spanish
Did
show,
you
and
watch
in
it
both of them, I
twice?
was just like, No,
Oh,
no, no. I think we did it like back to back or something because I was like, that's not gonna happen.
yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing. I don't have the attachment to Spike Lee movies that most people do, who grew up with it or whatever. To me, it's just, hey, this guy did do the right thing a long time ago, and haven't really seen much from him since. So that one. And then the last bad movie that at least top five that I saw this year was Project Power.
Whoa,
Have you
Jamie
seen
Foxx,
Project
Matt
Power?
Reeves. No.
Jamie Foxx. Yeah, yeah, it's not, no. Netflix needs to stop with this alternative universe of weird superheroes that they're trying to create because everything that they've tried to do related to that just doesn't work. And this one, it's really forced. It's really like, again, set up rules that don't make sense. Characters just make decisions just for the plot to move along, even though it doesn't make sense with the character that's been set up or the storyline that's been set up. It's very flashy, and it's one of those movies that seems to be trying to fill up a diversity quota too.
Yeah, how
You know,
about
it's very
Jihadi Gordon-Levitt there on the art, where he's got brown face?
yeah,
They darkened Joseph Gordon-Levitt to look like an
yeah,
Indian man on that artwork
yeah,
for
yeah.
Netflix.
It's Turkish or something. I don't know,
Hmm.
but it's bad. It's really bad. So those are my five. I'm sure there's worse movies, but at least from the ones that I saw, those are the five ones that really stuck in my head. Uh, but again, going back to what you said on the last episode, The Five Bloods probably wouldn't have made top 15 for you. So
Yeah.
I'll take that as a grain of salt. That's probably the one that we would disagree on the most, but
Yeah, but that, I mean that's mainly just look. I'll agree with you that the quality of that movie is not ideal, but for a movie that has so few good scripted films, and I'm already partial to Spike Lee to begin with, it's going to rank higher just naturally based on that merit. But if I was an impartial viewer, well, maybe a different story. I mean, Project Power. That's not looking optimistic then for the Batman movie. That's the same writer and director of the new Batman movie. Not
yeah,
good.
we'll see.
Not good.
I don't know. I don't know. Like there's some scenes where this girl, this black girl, is one of the main characters. She raps, and then they're in the classroom, and everyone's like, "Come on, do a rap," and then
Oh,
she does a rap, and it's very uncomfortable for like a minute. So it has those tones of maybe we'll get an audience of children, like that, trying to appeal to everyone, like you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, just like you should be with Bong Joon Ho Wung Bong, whatever. When when it's like you should stick to one thing, not try to please everyone. This movie's trying to please everyone, and then at the end is for
you know what that
no
sounds
one.
like? That sounds like when me and Kenny were in our youth when we'd go to hardcore parties. You know, like the music hardcore, and they'd be like, "Whoa, there's a black guy here. Hey, can you rap? Can you just do a rap real quick?" And then Kenny would give his rap, and they would all be like, "Wow,
Amazing.
amazing!" Yeah.
He just does his Instagram videos, but live. Uh,
Yes.
I
Yes.
used I used to go to hardcore shows too when I was growing up, and I had one black friend that would go to hardcore shows, and he was trying so hard to not be that he would dress with like the loudest hardcore shirts with like the most metal or like the most whatever, and I guess he was like a martial artist or whatever because he would do the hardcore dancing, but his moves were actually like you could see that he was throwing real kicks or whatever.
Yeah, like the
So I was
killer in
like, this
Fear City.
guy, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, shirtless, and yeah, and he was trying so hard to not be just a token black in his group of friends that he became white. Like his entire demeanor was super white, but he was, really
Yeah.
dark. I don't know. I just tell you that story, but anyway, we
No,
both have
I
black.
I think that's a I
That's
think
what I was
that's a
trying to say.
I think that's a pretty common trait. With guys like that, though, they usually come around and go the opposite way within like 10 years. Then they become like
Right.
Tariq Nasheed by the time they hit 30.
It's like they never accepted me, and I've tried so hard. So now I'm a black Israelite.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Let's get to the best movies of the year. I'll just give a quick rundown of the movies that did not make it. One that I was considering putting in my top 10 was TFW No GF because I felt like we were especially hard on that movie. But in retrospect to the rest of the year, I think it was a subversive piece of documentary filmmaking. And certainly one of the more memorable movies of the year, just because it highlighted an online subculture that I don't think is going to be covered or talked about in anything mainstream for a little bit. Anyway, I think maybe that trend will change. On the opposite end of that is Feels Good Man, which is the Pepe documentary, Pepe the Frog. And it's kind of like the opposite view of TFW No GF. It's really, it's oddly positioned as just an antithesis to the TFW No GF movie, and both feature Eggman, Egg White.
Yeah.
So maybe we could get him on at some point to talk about both these movies. I feel like maybe the time has passed for that because it's not 2020 anymore, but
relevant, yeah. But
yeah. But
he's friends with you. You interact with him regularly, right?
I don't know about we're online friendly, so we follow each other. I don't really interact. I mean, I don't know. We've had like very, very short discussions in the past. But
you should get him to visit you, and you can do some supper videos with him.
Wicked supper. We'll get Drew Carson on for the episode instead. Who you can see right now in one of our recent videos from the Headshot account. So another one was Happy Happy Joy Joy, the Ren and Stimpy documentary. That's about the Spunko company that John Kay founded and did that fantastic cartoon. And then at the last 30 minutes, they talk about some other things that John Kay did that were not so nice, that were very naughty, very bad, John Kay. Who are you talking to online, John? Who are you bringing out to California, John? Who's this little girl? Why is she living with you? You're not her dad, John. Please, somebody call the police. John Kay.
He was just pretending. He was pretending to be Jerry Seinfeld. That's it.
Yeah, but with a 13-year-old. Yeah.
Oh, she was.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not a James Franco, Jerry Seinfeld. She was 17 and about to turn 18 in a week. No, this was a 13-year-old girl who looked like a child. This is not good. But John Kay is a very talented artist, and it's a shame that Ren and Snippy, went the way of the dinosaur and got corporatized, and that he brought it back and it was even worse. So, yeah. Happy Happy Joy Joy. Pretty good documentary. Next up was Arkansas, the movie from Clark Duke with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
I thought that was good, niche, Midwestern crime done well, but didn't really linger beyond that for my viewing. And then your background, Color Out of Space, is right up following that, which I thought was pretty good. And I thought, all right, well, that's a decent start to the year.
Yeah.
And it didn't really go too much higher than that. So then we did Friedkin Uncut, which was a movie made in 2018 but released this year, which was about the work of William Friedkin. Da Five Bloods was number 13. Another William Friedkin documentary, specifically on The Exorcist, that was released direct to Shudder, called Leap of Faith, was number 12. And then the Showgirls.
Is that where he's performing the exorcisms, or is that another one?
No, that movie's so bad.
That's the Devil and Father whatever.
Father
right?
Morth. That's the worst movie he's ever done.
Yeah.
That's so bad. It is really bad. You Don't Know Me, the documentary on Paul Verhoeven and Showgirls, is number 11, just missing out. So those are the ones who did not make the cut. Why don't you? Well, actually, you only have 4, so I should go right into the top 10, and then we'll even out at 4. We'll go tit for tat. Okay. Number 10 is this movie. My background, if you're watching the video, Fat Man, the Mel Gibson Christmas film starring Mel Gibson and Walton Goggins. This was directed by 2 directors, a pair of brothers, it seems, Esham Nelms and Ian Nelms. And I give this movie a lot of credit because it is a ridiculous concept. It is an action film, and at no point does it wink to the camera. It sticks to its premise seriously and throughout, and at no point makes any self-depreciating jokes about its subject matter. It just allows the film to be itself because it realizes the film is the joke. So they don't cannibalize any aspect of it in the lead up, and that shows confidence, and it wound up making for a stronger, funnier, better film than what this probably would have turned out to be in the hands of anybody else. So Fat Man is number 10.
So do you think this is better than something like Mario Lopez's KFC movie,
Oh my God! You're
where
you're specifically referencing that because I said I hated that so much. Yes, of course. That's the opposite, where it's all winking in the camera. You have him as the colonel, and it's a movie. We did a movie. No, it's an 18-minute commercial. Who are you fooling? Disgusting.
yeah.
Next up, a documentary called Jasper Mall, which similar to Arkansas, is a slice of life out in the Midwest, southern Midwest, about a dying mall. Stores are closing up. Nobody's
Oh,
visiting the mall.
I think I saw that. That was painfully depressing, wasn't it?
It wasn't great. It was
Yeah.
kind of like, I mean, I've been a big fan of Dan Bell, who's a YouTuber. He likes to go into abandoned places and dirty motels and explore them or whatever. He's kind of fallen off. No offense to him. And this kind of reminded me of his earlier work where he's exploring malls, another Dead Mall series, and just more in a narrative sense, even though it's a documentary, getting to know the people that work inside them as opposed to just simply exploring them, and offered more depth to that. So Jasper Mall was a pretty good documentary. Number 8 is a movie we talked about on the show. And the one recent episode that did not do well at all in the numbers or the downloads, people were not interested in checking out Possessor, what we had to say about Possessor. Maybe because we did the Twitch show and that did decent.
Maybe.
Possessor, we did a full episode on Possessor. I don't really need to talk about it at length. Did you have anything you wanted to share about it?
No, that's on my list too of the best ones. Not because of how much I liked it, but because of how shit the year it was, I guess.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it that is to like in it, but at the end, I think my what I thought of the movie was that at the end, like I was left with wanting a little bit more than was given. But at least visually and story wise, it was good. It was decent.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it would be top 10 if it was any other year, but this year, at least it was creative. At least it was something that you don't usually see. Even if they were selling it to you with that image, with the mask image that ends up not being as creepy or as
Or relevant
what you
at
expect
all,
from
yeah.
seeing this. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
It just looks like a
But,
saggy
yeah.
piece of latex. Number 7 is the Ben Affleck career comeback film, the Corey Haim "I'm sober and ready to work" ad in film form, The Way Back, which is about him being an alcoholic coach, and he just kind of stays an alcoholic and he blows it for the team because of his alcoholism, where he can't show up to the final game, he's fired, and then he's just looking off a cliff, wondering where it all went wrong. That's where it ends. But it's more optimistic than that, because I guess he quits or something. I don't know. The Way Back's a pretty good movie, but again, this really wouldn't be in the top 10 otherwise. Number 6 is a movie that surprised me, that stars Joe Keery. That's the last name I was looking for, from Stranger Things.
All right.
Directed by Eugene. He's got a very Russian last name. I'm not going to
Levy?
attempt that. Yes, written and directed by Eugene Levy. Spree. Spree
Right.
is a movie, a good example of a movie that uses I don't want to call them scraps, but actors that are essentially scraps that you can find on Cameo.com, and employs them, like David Arquette, and actually gets good performances out of these people. Frankie Grande is in this movie from Big Brother, and I hate Frankie Grande. I couldn't stand him on Big Brother, and to see him make something of himself in this, it made me want to hate this movie when I saw him in the trailer. But the movie won me over. Joe Carey's very good in it, and I think this is a movie that will have some life beyond this year. So this is really where I would say the list is starting to be legitimate, right? Where this is a movie I probably would rewatch. I liked Spree quite a bit, and I was impressed by it.
This is one that you mentioned before that I couldn't get into it. I didn't get like very like I got into 5 minutes in and I was like just not in the mood to watch something like that. I had recently watched what was it called, Host, I think it was, which is like a a Zoom horror movie that they made, which was really, really bad. So that really put me off of that type of, movie making thing. But it's the second time that you said something nice about it, so I might just check it out, even though I don't really find him to be very likable, the actor.
Well, I mean, in this
But
movie, he's not supposed to be. He's supposed to be like an annoying
a YouTuber.
Twitch
Yeah.
SJWE, but not really type of guy. Like someone who just is a nuisance online. Like he's not.
Pretending to be. Yeah, yeah,
They could
yeah.
have turned him into
Jamie
like.
Gills.
Yes, yeah. They could have turned him into the Elliot Rodger prototype of incel, right? But
Okay.
they don't do that. They do make him more of a Jamie Kilstein type, but it's not overwhelming and it's not his defining character trait, which I think is a great move on the filmmaker's behalf. Because then once you do that, it becomes a very 2D cartoonish. We get what you're doing, and that overrides the movie. So to keep that subdued and make him more egregious in other ways, I think is a very smart move from the filmmaker's behalf. So that's number 6 for me. Number 5 is The Trip to Greece from Michael Winterbottom, starring Rob Brydon and Steve Coogan. This was maybe not the best movie in the Trip series. I think they progressively get worse, but they're all very
The
watchable.
first one's the best one, right?
Yes, the first one's definitely the best one.
Yeah.
Trip to Greece.
So have you become, because I didn't know what your familiarity with Steve Coogan was before these Trip movies, because I know that most of the time when you talk about Steve Coogan is about these movies, or at least the times that I've heard you talk about is about the Trip movies. Have you gotten into any of his earlier work?
Yeah, yeah. So
Alan Partridge or
Alan Partridge is like the only thing of his I haven't checked out. I know it's the big character he's known for in the UK, but when he made the leap overseas and started getting work in Hollywood, specifically when he popped up in Tropic Thunder, and that came out in the same time as Hamlet 2, and I saw Hamlet 2 in theaters. I thought both of those were very funny, so I did a deep dive into Steve Coogan's work, but I've never watched Alan Partridge anything.
okay. You should. I'm really bad at recommending things, but it's that type of British comedy that really works. It's very. I feel like British comedy is very hit and miss. Like it could be sometimes much too dry to the point of being unlikable.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's such an out of this world, oblivious character that thinks so much of himself, even though his situation is so shit that it lends for that very uncomfortable British comedy that makes you want to look away, but not really. Where I can't, like my face hurts from cringing so hard, but I need to finish the story.
Mm-hmm.
So if you enjoy like the bantering that he does with Rob, what's his name?
Rob
Brydon?
Brydon. Yeah.
Yeah. I think a deep dive into Alan Partridge, not the movie. The movie was kind of whatever. He had a talk show that was like a fake talk show where Simon Pegg shows up and just like people that are now. Something that is really good. And just his regular TV show, like the original one, I guess.
Right.
Check him out because I think you would.
Uh-oh, we got to freeze. After all this time recording now, 48 minutes, it took that long for Hans's connection. Hi, you're back. You were just saying you'd think I'd like
Yes.
Alan Partridge, probably.
Yes.
Okay.
So just watch that was a long way of me saying just watch Alan Partridge.
Okay. About the Trip to Greece before we move into top 4 for both of us. It's the last Trip film. It was advertised as the last Trip, but it ends very weird and abruptly. Like Steve Coogan or somebody ran out of time with Michael Winterbottom, and he just like leaves the country midway through because there's a death in the family. Feels like an odd note to end on. I don't know. As films, I don't know if they really work in like as a movie, but as comedies, tremendous successes. Very, very funny movies.
It's like a modern day Dinner with Andre, right? Where
Kind
it's just
of.
two people sitting.
Yeah.
Not much is happening, but their personality pretty much driving the whole thing. It's funnier, definitely.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying. And
they're
more is happening. They leave the dinner table, so
Yeah, and they're way more talented I can't remember who played those characters in the universe, Andre, but the fact that they're comedians, like it adds a lot to just the banter or like the shit that they talk. Uh, I haven't seen the third one, but I remember enjoying the first and second very much. So it's definitely one that I would check out.
Yeah, the first two are absolutely the best. The third one is kind of where it starts to fall off, but they're still funny. Like that's the thing; it wouldn't be number 5 if it wasn't funny. So definitely check that out. I know it's initially released as a series in the UK, and then they cobble them together, re-edit it, and package it as a movie. Very interesting approach there. Okay, you want to start off with your number 4 for the year?
This one, I just haven't heard, especially our circle, talking about it, and it's one that kind of surprised me, but not really at the same time because I'm one of the few people in our group, I think, that still enjoys Andy Samberg on screen.
Oh,
I still think, I guess. I have a thing with Hot Rod. Like Hot Rod is one of my favorite comedies because of how silly it is. That whenever there's a new thing with him that looks interesting, I'll check it out just because I think he's not become unbearable yet. He's someone that I still like. It's called Palm Springs.
yeah, I watched this
and
movie.
it's kind. Oh, you did? Because
Mhm.
it's kind of like a Twilight Zone episode, right? Where it's like you fall into a time loop of things that you can't get away, and then this girl is also in the same time loop, and I thought it was a very creative idea, and the way that it was shot, I really enjoyed, and I'm a big fan of Andy Samberg. I just think he's very likable, and this is one that I haven't really seen many people mention, especially in a year like this where comedies, even though it's kind of a sci-fi movie, like there's a lot of funny things in it.
It was better
So
than
that
I thought it would be. That's what I'll say because I really don't like Andy Samberg, but I was
yeah,
able to watch. I was able to watch the movie to completion. It wasn't my. It was more of a. I was over my girlfriend's house and her brother put it on because he's an Andy Samberg fan, I guess. And I was just like the polite
stuck to
viewer,
him.
just sitting to
Yeah.
myself, gonna keep my thoughts to
Okay.
myself today. Not this fucking sucks. Turn this shit off. Uh, that's not the impression you want to leave on a significant other's family members. So
Just a fucking movie snob that likes a lot of really shitty movies, and not this one because you like this one.
yeah.
I'm not gonna
So
like it. Yeah.
but it was actually I thought it was all right. I thought it was decent, especially for a comedy, a modern comedy. It does well, and it was watchable. I didn't get bored or find it intolerable.
It was between that and another one that's kind of similar, Vivarium. I think that's how you pronounce it.
That was
It's
Jesse Eisenberg, right?
yeah, that was kind of a similar story where they just get caught into what seems to be like a reality loop that they
Mhm.
can't escape. That one was a little bit more artistically made, I guess. The cinematography is a little bit more interesting, but I enjoyed Palm Springs a little bit more. So that would be my number 4 right now.
Not a bad pick. My number 4 is a collaboration between Abel Ferrara and Willem Dafoe called Tommaso, which is partially autobiographical. And it is about Willem Dafoe, who is Abel Ferrara's neighbor in real life and a good friend of his because they've done tons of movies together, hooking up with Abel Ferrara's real life wife. He feels her breasts, he kisses her, they're making out on the couch, he's fucking her. It is hot. Tommaso is hot. That's why it's number 4. One of the things I like about Tommaso is that they don't tell you he is an unreliable narrator. So you see his wife cheating on him, maybe about 20 minutes into the film, and you're like, oh shit, she ruined their happy family. But then you just get glimpses at other delusions, and it by the end of it you realize, oh, these are all just manifestations of his insecurities on the screen. That these are all fantasies of his, these worst case scenarios that are playing out, like him being captured and killed and all this and that. It's an interesting movie. So Abel Ferrara and Willem Dafoe had 2 movies come out this year. And I'll just do this back to back. Number 3.
No, that's my next pick, you piece of shit. Siberia, right?
Really? You watched Siberia?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow.
Okay, you can start.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll just turn this into a general conversation for the number 3 spot because we both have Siberia. So I watched
Yeah.
Siberia recently because it came out online. I watched Tommaso, and I thought, all right, that was pretty good. And I actually thought it was one of the better films of the year. And one thing that struck me about Tommaso is that it's shot in a lo-fi manner. Like it felt like very, we'll shoot this whenever we can. We'll shoot this at each other's apartments in the neighborhood. We're only using friends and family in this movie for actors. And I thought, all
It
right,
felt like a very personal, very small project
mm-hmm,
thing where let me get my friends together and just do this, in our house, nothing big, nothing,
right.
bigger than that.
So I thought, all right, is Abel Ferrara at the point in his career where that's just the type of movie he's doing? Because it's a familiar trajectory. Like Francis Ford Coppola started doing, I mean, not with his friends and family. I mean, he'd always done that. He's put his daughter in Godfather 3, but where he's making smaller films overseas for less money. And I thought, all right, well, this is, I mean, in terms of the production, the scale of the production, it is a far cry from something like Bad Lieutenant or King of New York, but it's still good. It's good in its own way.
Right.
It's just a different type of film. Then you watch Siberia, and you're like, oh, Siberia was the real movie they were shooting. This was the project that was like the backup. Got it.
Right.
Okay. So Siberia, it looks and feels more like what I'll call a real film, as in, would an average person sit down and put this movie on and go, why is it shot like this? Why does it look like this? No, they wouldn't do that. This is very visually interesting, and I'll let you
Yeah.
take over since this is your number three.
It feels like a fever dream, the whole thing. Like you don't really know what the movie is trying to say for most of the movie. I don't even know if you know what it's trying to say by the end of it. But his interactions with every character that comes into his life are so interesting, even though, at the beginning he can't even speak the language that the Russians or whatever those ladies are uh, speak. But the way that he has been communicating in this very isolated place with them make those interactions very interesting because it's not like a verbal thing, but it's more of like a let me, have you try to understand me. And visually, it had so many little things that, well, just like you said, I did watch Tommaso before this, so I was expecting his trajectory or his career to go smaller, but this one felt very ambitious to me. Like
Yeah,
it felt like it's definitely not a movie for everyone. Not a movie for someone that maybe doesn't have a lot of patience to watch movies. And it felt more of like an artistic statement than Tommaso to me. But I enjoyed it throughout, and it's weird because I've always thought of Willem Dafoe as a great actor, even though he's done a lot of mainstream work, and that usually lessens someone's career. But I'm glad to see that he's what, like 70 now, or he's like 60 something, and he's still putting out small projects that fine, it's his friend or whatever, but still doing interesting stuff, even though he's been doing interesting things for so long, and his career still has not, bottomed out where he's doing Adam Sandler type of shit. You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. So I mean, well, that speaks to that is that you have the Adam Sandler school of thought, which is I'm going to make really shitty movies with my friends, and we're just going to milk this company forever. And then the Willem
Yeah.
Dafoe thing, which is like, oh, well, we both live in the same general location. We're both very skilled people. Why don't we make something interesting out of this, and we'll sell it using our connections in the foreign market? And yeah, it's definitely an artistic statement. I think it's probably maybe not as autobiographical as Tommaso is about Abel Ferrara, but it does feel like he might be revisiting certain aspects of his own life there. And the use of Runaway, Del Shannon's Runaway, it feels like an echo to when he was working on Crime Story. And that was like the opening song to Crime Story. So there's a connection there with that musical choice. Did not expect Willem Dafoe to be attacked by a bear 5 minutes in. I thought, all right, this is going to be a quiet
Yeah.
log cabin movie where they're just going to be in a bar and talking for 90 minutes. No, 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 no. It does cut to vignettes of this character's life where he's just kind of reflecting on everything that has led up to the point that he's currently at.
Well, it adds a layer of it kind of feel like he's stuck in limbo, like
Mm.
he's before he moves to whatever the next life is. because he's in this place that's very dark. I don't think we get to see the whole place ever, or I can't remember if we do get to see the whole place, but it's a very nondescript. It's like in the middle of nowhere. Like we don't really know that much about the place. It's just this is where he is, and the way that Ferrara shot it again, like it's just a very artistic expression from someone that's an old man now that I was not expecting. I like you said, I thought I was gonna watch a small independent Tommaso like movie, and this was very surprising. And I don't know. I feel like maybe this one it's the exception of the rule, that if it was the other year, maybe this would have cracked the top 10. But at least with what we've seen so far for 2020 is definitely up there. Yeah.
For me. For me, I would say like any one of my top 6 would probably maybe make the top 10. Although I would say Trip to Greece and Spree probably wouldn't. Top 4 would probably be in my top 10, but maybe not top 4. Number 2 for me, unless you have anything else to add about Siberia, but I think we did a pretty good job with that. Number 2 for me is Werner Herzog's Family Romance LLC, which is a Japanese film that was released direct to Mubi. And Mubi is a very boring service. Mubi sucks. And Mubi is like a more boring Criterion channel where they just take the most pretentious old pieces of shit that nobody's heard of, nobody cares about, and then they try to make it look like having Antoine E. Denel is the highlight of their service. But they got Family Romance LLC, and this is another movie that's shot in an odd way. I think Werner Herzog was just filming the actors with his cell phone for parts of it. But I think it speaks to a lot of interesting aspects about the Japanese culture and the nature of artifice and where people decide to rule the lines about what is an acceptable lie, what is an unacceptable lie, and in what context. It's about a man who works for a service where people will, and this actually exists, where people will rent loved ones to bring to weddings or funerals or just have an occasion with. And
what is it, grief something is called, I think. Yeah.
So it's about how one of these people winds up developing like a genuine relationship with one of his clients, and how the lines of that start to blur, and he's confronted with the idea of maybe I become an actual part of this family, but it doesn't wind up going that way. He winds up sticking to his professional business, because how bizarre would that be? It's
fiction, right? Or is it a documentary?
It's fiction presented as documentary style, right? So it's constantly just following the characters. The quality of the camera is not very good, but it creates a good atmosphere for this style of movie where you're just kind of eavesdropping on everything that's happening. There's no depth of field or anything at the beginning where they're just meeting in a park. Very, very peculiar film. Very, very good film, and I highly recommend it. Good to see that Werner Herzog is still making great films.
Still, yeah, he's not falling into his Mandalorian fame now that, everyone's making a big deal about him being a Mandalorian.
That's who he is now. He finally made it. He made it in showbiz. He made it. He made it in Hollywood.
How sad. Fucking sad. My number one, that it wasn't my number one until we started talking.
Wait, hold on. No. Wait. No, you should be at number 2. What? Right?
No, my number two was the one you said.
Siberia.
How did I forget already?
I don't know. We've been recording way too long today. That's why we're starting to fucking die out.
I thought that was my number. Yeah.
Number 4 was what? Jacob's Ladder. You had a top 4.
No.
You did one, and then you did Siberia.
I fucking deleted them from BS already. Whatever. Anyway, my top movie of the year, or the one that's stuck with me the most, that I didn't even think about mentioning until you mentioned documentaries, was that Belushi documentary.
Okay.
I think mostly because I really am interested in all of those torture comedians from back in the day. and just how they got to what they were and what it took to get there, and how usually didn't last long because they ended up destroying themselves. Um, fuck, how, oh, his name, they just slipped my mind. Man
Dan
in the Moon.
Aykroyd.
Uh,
Um,
no, no,
uh,
no. Andy,
REM. Andy Kaufman.
Andy Warhol. Andy
Andy
Kaufman.
Warhol. No,
Uh,
that was Midnight Cowboy.
I was big into Andy Kaufman, not because I thought he was hilarious, even though he did some funny things, but just because of he was such a weirdo, right?
Yeah.
He was very peculiar with his things. He was very weird, very particular, very into like his own brilliance or craziness, whatever you want to call it. This Belushi one is presented in a very similar way, where Joe Belushi to me was just like Chris Farley light, just not knowing much about him, where is the fat character, right? The fat guy that's always going to play the fat guy, the fat character, but he's the funniest one of them all. So you always want him there, but you're never going to pick him to be the lead character, even though he's the one that's making everyone laugh, right?
Mhm.
So they presented the story about him being, a young kid that would put on shows for his family, and then he got to Second City, and he wasn't the top face of it because he was short and chubby, right? So he was again the funny guy, and then how he ended up being like the main character on SNL, or like the biggest one, and that how his movie career little by little started, getting better, and his troubles with everything. It's just very throughout, and any movie that makes me like Jim Belushi, it's has to be on like a top
Wow,
list of
Thief and
something for
this.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's yeah. Oh fuck, I completely forgot
Yeah.
that he was in Thief. Yes, because he just talks about his brother in a very normal way that you don't usually hear. Because I have a feeling that every time he talks about anything related to his brother, there's a little bit of like insecurity because he's never going to be or was as
He's
good
the
as
lesser
him.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like interviewing Chris Farley's brother, right? Who's still Eric. I think his name is Eric. I don't know,
He's a
but he's a
comedian
stand-up.
too, and he has the
Yeah,
almost
and an
exact
actor
same
too. So
personality as Chris Farley as well. So, and you'll see him cast in like Adam Sandler projects or whatever sometimes as like a security
yeah,
guard. And
he plays like a more subdued Chris Farley, but he kind of
right,
looks like him, and he
yeah,
kind of yeah. But yeah, this is very throughout, and it gave me like a new appreciation for this guy that I used to, think he was funny. He was one of the very few early SNL actors that were actually funny,
hmm
because that show at the beginning was kind of a mess. And then, Animal House and the other movies that where he got his fame or whatever, and then his death. But it was very thorough, very enjoyable. I think it's from Hulu, if I'm not mistaken. It's just called Belushi. So that would be the one that stuck with me the most this year.
yeah. I'm gonna have to check this out. I was curious about it, and I was about to download it, and then my computer died right at that exact moment. So maybe I'll make up for lost. I actually have Hulu. There's no reason for me to download it. So
Yeah.
I'll give that a watch because I'm very interested. John Belushi is not a comedian or SNL performer who's ever really stuck out to me at all, even though he's considered a legend and one of the
Yeah.
classics, especially of that era. So maybe to give him his due or whatever, I'll give that a look. But I don't know. I was more in the Bill Murray camp or Chevy Chase, Dan
Okay. The
Aykroyd.
dick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
asshole.
yeah,
Just
yeah. The straight asshole. Yeah,
yeah.
straight man asshole
Well,
character.
Chevy
Yeah,
Chase is
literally.
somebody whose work I've gotten more into as of late, who has been totally shunned from society. But
Well, talk about another misunderstood artist, right? He's another one that he's just kind of mean.
well, plenty of
He's been so.
misunderstood comments on the set of Community to Donald Glover and whoever that other black actress was. Yeah,
I mean, he's just an old guy. He's
yeah,
been he's been just think about this. So he was in the Ropers, right? The Ropers is from like 1970 fucking 3 or something. So he's been maybe not famous, but at least in the industry for fucking 60 years, 50 years, whatever.
hmm
If there's a actor of color that's young and new, Maybe he's,
No, he's not.
so
Look, he's
might
not
have a
old
comment or
fashioned.
two.
He was trying to
Might
be
have a
funny.
comment or two. Yeah, exactly. There we go. So
Oh.
that's just
I don't know.
he's
We
not
did a defense of Shia LaBeouf at the
Chevy.
beginning of the show. We don't need to get into Chevy Chase's remarks. Anyway, my number one.
Chevy did nothing wrong, and Dan Harmon is as much of a fucking pig as Tig Notaro.
I'll agree with that.
There it is.
I think he's probably
said it.
worse.
Fuck it.
I think Dan Harmon's much worse. Even though Tig Notaro's personally, I find her very distasteful in her actions. My number one for the year is Another Round, which was a film I watched somewhat recently, directed by Thomas Vinterberg, starring Mads Mikkelsen and a bunch of schlubby actors who are not nearly as good looking as Mads Mikkelsen. You almost don't believe that they're friends because he looks like a real actor, and they all look like guys that they pulled off the street. And it's about yes, and it's not in English, no. And it's about a group of four friends.
No, in Danish, I mean, is it?
Yes.
Is it in Danish?
Yes.
What is the host? No, what is the
host is
Korean.
Korean.
What is that other movie that? No. Fuck, my
Hunt.
memory recently.
It's
The
fine.
Hunt.
The Hunt.
God damn it. Yeah.
Same director, actor
Same
duo.
director, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the synopsis of this is 4 high school teachers launch a drinking experiment, upholding a constant low level of intoxication, which is under the belief that they will perform better because they'll be more confident, because they'll have less inhibitions, and do the best work that they've ever done. Now, this actually works. This works. They are socially better. They are better workers. Now, it starts to trickle over into their real life as they up the dosage of that, because obviously you're going to get a tolerance to a certain level of alcohol, and you're going to drink more, and then you're going to have it out of control. But it does seem to fix the Mad Mikkelsen's character's life for a while. It makes him friendlier to his students, a better teacher, a better performer, so he's more engaging. Everybody's tests come back and they're all passing, and then for the others, equal success except one, and it just carries on like that. And then they have like a nice night out drinking. It's kind of similar to Husbands in that way, where they just go off the rails, and eventually it does hit a brick wall where one of them succumbs to alcoholism, of course. Yes.
It's a Danish movie. Someone gets murdered in some horrendous way, and we see all of it, and they feel nothing.
Yes.
That's typical fucking European movie like that, where it's like, hey, we're all having a good time. All of a sudden,
the good time can't stop.
Fell in his head, and his neck came out of his asshole, and now that just happened. Let's move on.
I was more concerned about the dog that he left in the boat, which apparently somehow they discovered him the same day he died, even though he went out on the water with the dog. Anyway, so one of the friends dies, and I don't know if this was originally planned for the ending. Here's what happened. Thomas Vinterberg's daughter died in a car crash during the production of this movie, and so I think things had paused. And when he came back, I might have that wrong. I might have it wrong that production was paused. It might have happened right before they started filming. But the ending of this movie was changed, I think, as a result of that, where instead of ending on a more dreary note, you have that dance sequence at the very end where everybody's drinking and it's a celebration. So he decided to make it more of a celebration of life as opposed to, here's the good, here's the bad.
So he was making a movie about people's lives who got improved by drinking, and then his kid was killed in a
I don't know if it was a drunk driving accident. I think it was just a driving accident. I think someone crashed into it or something, but who knows. So, and then it ends with Mads Mikkelsen dancing and drinking, and it's a very well shot movie. It's a well done movie. It's not the type of movie you would see released by a mainstream distributor in America, which automatically gives it points in my book. But more than that, it's well performed, well shot. I really enjoyed it. Another Round.
I was a little bit worried about that one because I thought it was an American movie. I didn't know that Thomas Vinterberg, or however you pronounce his name, was the one, because the Hunt is my favorite movie for whatever year that came out on, because of how fucking intense it is and just how good. So yeah, definitely is one that I would check out. I had seen it on the couple of um, legal websites that I go to, but I was worried because I thought it was like an American movie where they just have him, Mads Mikkelsen, which he's been doing a lot for the past, what,
Yeah,
10,
he's been
15 years?
doing real clunkers in America. He's been doing every
Postal, was
Marvel.
it?
No, he was. He didn't do
But,
Postal, did he? The
no, no, not
the
Postal. What was that movie? It's like an iceberg or something, or that he did for Netflix. God damn it, Mads Mikkelsen. You hated it. I
an
remember you
iceberg.
hating it. Polar, polar,
Polar.
polar, polar.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that was a bad movie. That was from
See,
Jonas
I thought it was
Ackerland,
something. Okay.
and he did Lords of Chaos
Yeah.
later that year and redeemed himself. But yeah, Polar was terrible.
Yeah. So that's what I thought it was. Now that it's more of a character study, I guess, or more of a small story from this director and him. He's one of my favorite actors, but he's been doing a lot of not great stuff. So I'm sure I'll
But
enjoy
he's
that one.
always good. I mean, even when he's doing
Yeah,
Star
yeah,
Wars
yeah,
or Marvel
yeah,
movies, he's always good. He's one of the great working actors right now for certain.
yeah.
Uh, but he's going to make a living, I guess. So, yeah, that's another round. And yours was Belushi. So
Yeah.
that's 2020. That's 2020. And that has been movies as we're about to hit the 5 hour mark on Skype. We, it has been a long recording process here, although surprisingly very few interruptions throughout the duration of that.
My internet got reliable too after a little while, so that's good.
Yeah. Um, anything
Okay.
you have to say in terms of optimism towards 2021?
No, I'm not optimistic about anything getting better until they open theaters. I think opportunities for smaller filmmakers, unless they do it all themselves, like we kind of are, or
Mm-hmm.
I guess you are. I'm not really doing much of it anymore. Um, will be the ones that put movies out, but I don't know if anyone will be willing to give anyone money until this movie theater thing is fixed. Streaming, fine, but I think, and this is something I wanted to mention earlier when we were talking about Netflix productions, that I don't know if it's a different mindset that you have when you're directing a movie for theaters or when you're doing something for streaming, because for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just me being weird, but whenever I watch a movie that I know it's meant for streaming, um, they all have like a very similar feel to them where it just doesn't feel like a real movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I don't know if I don't know if it's the theater setting. I don't know if it's the maybe the actors they use. I don't know. But whenever I watch a movie that I know is made specifically for a streaming service, it feels like the effort is not all the way there. It feels like they're thinking more of well, this is just more content for the website. It's not going to blow anyone's mind, but it's decent enough where enough people would like it, and maybe we'll do a second one.
I'll tell you what I actually
Instead,
think it is. I think this is it. I think it's not even a real thing in the movie because none of these movies really have a thing in common, and a lot of them are actually very well made, and some of them are good movies. I think the reason that we all feel this way about the Netflix films and how they're released, and that they feel very algorithmic or sterilized to some degree, even if they aren't. I think what we're learning from this is that the context surrounding the release matters. So if you have a movie where it's like that's the movie coming out this day, right? And there's a big event around that. You have a big press campaign. You get some posters. You get some action figures, novelizations. You get all this stuff. It is
Pop Tarts,
it's
yeah.
something bigger than just something you're going to throw on your TV for 90 minutes because you're bored because you need something on while you're cooking dinner. What Netflix does is remove the context and just offer the product as it is, and then they swap out the thumbnail every 2 weeks or whatever. So there's nothing. It makes it reduces it so that it's not even a piece of art anymore, but just pixels, And
Yeah.
I think that lends itself to forgettability.
And I if this year has been uh, proof of what next year is going to be, um, if things don't change quickly, if this vaccine is not miraculously going to open everything again, which is probably not going to happen, even if it was, 100% effective.
No, then we'll get COVID
Uh,
20.
yeah, I'm not very hopeful about next year's prospects, to be honest. Especially after the year we just had in movies. Not so much about everything else that's happening, but the things that we've look at this list, like we said, like this couple of lists are pretty bad compared to other years. Not just because of the selection of movies that you have available before, where you would have, theatrical released ones and then other ones that go direct to the streaming. Um, I can't see it getting better. I'm curious as to what the Oscars are going to be this year,
Yeah.
because there's not a lot of self-sucking movies, which is usually what they go for. Whatever industry self-suck they can get. There's not any movie that fucking blew me away, or that you could say this is Oscar bait and it's really good, or it worked, or this performance is very memorable, whatever. I don't know what they're going to do. I think the only reason why I'm interested in watching the Oscars, 'cause I haven't watched in a couple of years, but just to see what a train wreck is going to be and like what they do with it. But I'm not hopeful that at this point next year, when we're probably recording this, the 2021 episode, if we haven't died yet,
Yeah.
I don't know if the list is going to be much better than this. I think we're probably going to be inundated with a lot of series, with a lot of TV series or a lot of streaming series, but not as many movies, just like this year.
I'm slightly more optimistic than that because I think when things get really bleak, it's because of a time of stagnancy where nothing has really changed. And I think because theaters are seeming like they're about to permanently go out of business or be like a little novelty, where it's only gonna, where we had talked about this years before, where it's just gonna eventually be reduced to like the Disney whatever for your main theater, and then novelty theater, and everything else in between is going to be weeded out. We don't even know if we're going to get the Disney anymore or the novelty.
Yeah.
So I think by removing theaters from the equation and the original model of how movies would be made and distributed, it's going to lead to a change. It might not be a good change. I'm inclined to believe that it'll lead to more positive things than negative as far as the quality of movies. Anyway, because you will see a lot of those blockbusters that are terrible and forgettable and lower enthusiasm get turned into shows, and maybe it'll bring out the people. Maybe I'm not confident. Maybe it'll bring out the people that really want to make movies and do something interesting with that. So, I'm not totally bummed on the prospects for 2021.
I think the problem with that was that the year before 2020 happened, it's when we started getting this huge conglomerates of Marvel, Disney, people that own everything and have all the money and who make the decisions about what they're producing. If there wasn't such a monopoly on that type of money, then I think I would be a little bit more optimistic about it. But I think that if the power is all in their hands, even if you're very creative, like they're not going to let you touch their properties unless you do exactly what they tell you to do. So it's possible that it will bring out creative people like us, I'd like to say, right? Where we're trying to make something out of nothing, or just like scraping to try to get this one thing done. And we might be able to see things like that, but I don't know if in the large scale of things, when have studios that should be backing movies so that they're, get more money, better productions. I don't know if they would be willing to do that without theaters, and them owning everything is going to be more difficult.
So here's a couple of things to look forward to, because I mean, look, I agree with you definitely that corporations have a much stronger stranglehold over the culture and over anything entertainment related than they ever have previously, especially this year compared to last year. Although, if we're speaking in the grand scale of things, still not that much of a difference. here's what is going to be the equalizer, and maybe this can all change with Amazon changing their standards for publishing movies. But anybody can upload a movie to Amazon Prime right now and set it at any price they want. And if theaters are removed from the equation and we just have Netflix and Amazon Prime as the top two, now obviously people use Hulu and HBO Max, this and that, but those are the main two that everybody uses, right? And especially Amazon Prime, where people just have that for delivery purposes. That is going to potentially level the playing field to independent filmmakers and distributors who are working with a smaller amount of money. And taking into account that if they do move all of their movie projects into the mold of a series, that means the budgets are going to go down. So you're going to have less impressive blockbusters, right? Or less visually impressive because the money's not going to be there as much, versus potentially a spring of moderate budget movies and smaller budget movies that are all going to be clumped into the same location. And I would have to assume that the closing of theaters would result in Netflix optioning more properties. And Netflix can only fall if the shareholders in Netflix get cold feet, which doesn't seem to be happening, and I doubt it would happen with theaters out of the picture. So the downside is, the corporations are going to get much stronger, and it does seem to be a monopoly. But as far as art goes, there's going to be a wider pathway to get projects out there. And also, we're not going to have Trump in the picture, which, on one hand, you're strengthening that faction. On the other hand, you're going to have less people making message films about, we got to get the orange man out, we got to get the bad guy out of office, which is like 40% of the entertainment that's put out. It's going to be directed somewhere, yes.
It's going to be only 1 year, though. I don't know. I think that titty has still yet to be milked for about a year because they have nothing else.
They're going to be obsessed. They're going to be obsessed. I'll give you that.
Their entire career, the past 4 years, you can't just be like, all right, he's gone now, so never mind. Let me just move on to the next thing.
They have to.
It's going to be just like it was with Bush. You remember Bush when Bush left? There was still like a little bit of, hey, remember how much of a retard our president was? So I don't see them moving on so quickly. I want to believe in your future, not my 2021, because you will suck just like this one sucked. Yeah. Where, I watched like 20 movies, like just because nothing else was enticing. So hopefully, but I'm not very hopeful. I don't know. Let's hope that there's more opportunities for people like us that are actually trying to do things differently and trying to maybe not so much as to say something with the movie, but at least try something different than what you're getting regularly. Mm-hmm. And if streaming websites go that way, where they give it to, new content creators, new filmmakers, then that's great. Let's hope that the whole, Alex Kurtzmans of the world stop being the heads of these gigantic productions.
Let's give him and Akiva their own production company. See what that turns out.
It should be heads of Netflix, so they end up murdering that thing. But let's hope. Let's be hopeful and hope that 2021 will be better than this fucking shit ass year of nothingness. Really.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the worst offense of the year. It's just pure nothing for too long.
Hey, at least we'll have superhero movies back in 2021, so that's something to look forward
to. You're right. We got the comeback of Zack Snyder. I can't wait.
Yeah, hell yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right. That's been this episode of Movies. I am ready to go take a nap, and by take a nap I mean go to sleep for the night because we've been going for a long time now. All right. Thank you for listening.